audience's add context to this interview for audience's education. I also went to grad school in New York. This is another commonality we have. I went to NYU's program,
Right.
and so love the program. Um, the difference between NYU and Cornell, besides the location,
Mhm.
everyone knows that, is that you guys and gals had the more um like a 30-man, woman, student, whatever you want to call it, cohort.
Cohort, yep. Mhm.
Where NYU, we were just pumping out.
Yeah, yeah,
We had everybody.
yeah. Right.
We had about 200 people every year,
Right,
right?
for
So
sure.
that was very hard to develop relationships. But anyway, it's not about me, it's about you. So let's talk about Cornell more in depth. So you go to that program. How did you so how did you get accepted, or how did you tell me about that process?
That was another kinda serendipitous, situation. So, when like I said, my first job out of undergrad was working at UPenn. So, at this particular time, you know, for some reason, I got this thing where I said, "Imma visit all the Ivies one day."
Okay.
Like, that was a goal of mine to
Right,
visit
when you were
every
in Philly.
yeah, to
Okay.
visit every Ivy League college. I used to go up to Princeton on the weekends and
Mhm.
hang out there. So one thing I used to do is every time I visit a school, I used to grab a t-shirt from a school. So had a t-shirt from Penn, from Princeton, had visited Harvard, Brown.
Wow.
So when I visited Cornell, I said, before I left, I said, let me grab a Cornell joint before I get out of here. And came back home. I said, okay, I'm gonna apply to Cornell, but I really don't want to go to grad school. But I said, if I'm gonna do it again, this don't wanna be the only one I do. I was like,
Mhm.
no disrespect to like NYU or any other program. I just felt that what I needed with
Mm,
me, it was like, okay, it's gonna be Cornell or
I
nothing.
totally get it, yep.
So I applied to Cornell. It was the only school I applied to, and I said, hey, I'm gonna put it in God's hands. If it's meant for me to get in, I'm gonna get in. And if I get in, then that's what I'm gonna do.
Right.
So I applied, didn't hear nothing for a long time. I was like, oh, what's up with this Cornell decision? And that T-shirt that I had grabbed, I took it home and like threw it in the bottom of my drawer. Cause sometimes I just have it as like a souvenir or something
Yeah,
like that, you
yeah.
know. And so one day, I'm just chilling at the crib, and I said, let me pull out, let me wear this Cornell joint one day.
Okay.
And so we went out to a park or something like that. I went out to the lake for the day and spend the day. And I get back and I check my email, and I get this email from Beth Van Dyne. Shout out to Beth. She
Shout out
was
to
like,
Beth.
she's a Philly girl. She was like, who she was the first person I spoke to when I went to visit
Oh,
Cornell.
wow, wow,
And
awesome.
that conversation that I had with her really compelled me to kind of apply to Cornell.
Mhm.
She said a couple of things that really made it kind of seemed like it was somewhere for me to be at. And like me and her, we had kind of had like that Philly connection. She was like,
Mm,
I'm a Philly girl. So I was like, shoot it to me straight,
cool.
Beth.
Yeah.
So we chopped it up. So anyway,
You already knew. I'm from Philly. Shoot it
yeah.
to me straight. That's how it is,
Yeah.
man. Yup.
So she gave it to me straight. And I was like, all right, I respect it. So I was like, all right, all right. She said some things that made me feel warm and fuzzy. So
Okay.
anyway, so I get back that day. I got on my Cornell team. This is like months later. I checked my email. I see this email from Beth. She was like, "Hey, I just realized, I had your acceptance email stuck in my outbox for like 2 months." And I was like, "What?" So, so I'm rocking this T-shirt, and I see that I got in.
Oh, wow,
So I
cool.
was like, "Oh, okay. This,
Yeah.
it's kind of meant to be."
Yeah, yeah.
So now I'm scrambling because she gave it to me like a month or two late. So now I gotta make this big transition. I gotta pack up everything I got and get ready to go to Ithaca over the summer. So that was kind of the drive or the background that kind of led me up to Cornell.
Wow, awesome, man. Great story. I'm sure others, can relate to their transition going to grad school and
Mhm.
having to not really leave it all behind, but just kind of, transition into a new era or new
Mm,
chapter in their life.
yeah.
So, Cornell, let's go into the Cornell situation because that's big for why we're also connecting. So you go to Cornell, you go to Ithaca. So life is great, right?
Nah, man, it was tough.
It was tough.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
come on, man. Because beautiful, Cornell's a great Ivy League school. Couldn't have been that tough.
Nah, man, you gotta lock in, man. It's baptism by fire, man. You know, they
Okay.
try to put enough pressure on you to turn you into a diamond, and it's like
Okay.
the way the Baker program, it's set up, it's to kind of throw you into the middle of it and to really put things on you to put you in this high pressure environment. Because first of all, you know, you're gonna be a part of this exclusive cohort, you know. So
Mhm.
I think my cohort, it was only 26 of us, you know, so you're a part of this select group. And then they front load their curriculum to make it very challenging in that
Mhm.
first semester, which is kind of built to kind of set you up for the rest of your graduate education, you know,
Wow.
to kind of like sort of taper off a little bit, or to get you to be functioning on a level that's higher than you may have been used to in the past, you know.
Okay.
So that first semester, it was crazy tough for me, you know, and it took me a minute to adjust. You know, first of all, you know, I've been out of school for like more than 10 years.
Right.
Now I'm in this fast-paced environment, which is different than being in corporate America,
Mhm.
which I had been in for a while, but now I'm in this, you know, in this incubator, like really, you know. So it was a bit challenging at that the first part of it.
And then another thing I want to touch on, and we talked about this before, you being an older graduate student, going full time,
Right,
because most people at an older age may go or choose to go part time just
right,
because they have other obligations, kids, house mortgage, blah blah, and then they also have a job, right?
right.
So you decided to you got everything you needed out of your job, trying to transition. What was it like going as an older student?
It was that was a part of the challenge, and I don't think it was just a part of my age, but one of the things that you'll learn in grad school in the Baker program is a business degree. It's equivalent to, it's akin to having a full-time MBA
Mhm.
specifically in real estate.
Right.
So you're essentially in business school.
Hmm.
And in all of these business school programs, MBAs, Baker program, or whatever there is, you know, it's created for you to have these relationships with the people in which you matriculate with, and these people are going to be a part of your extended business network.
Hmm.
So coming into the Baker program, because I was older, I was married,
Hmm.
and I was Muslim, so
Hmm.
I didn't
Yeah.
have those same ties with my my classmates who were
Right.
in my cohort, because I didn't, you know, I didn't go to the pub or to the bar out to drink with them
Yeah.
after class.
That wasn't your thing. Your
Yeah, yeah, that
religion.
wasn't
Yeah.
my thing. You know, I got a little bit, you know, my life is a little bit, moves a little bit different.
Right.
So I didn't develop those same relationships that some other people had earlier in my career. And then also in the Baker program, let's say it was 26 in my cohort. And I think maybe out of that 26, 12 or 13 are international.
Hmm.
So they have their own little small enclaves or cliques, because, you know, the Asian students or the Indian students or Latin American students, you know, they have that shared cultural
Hmm.
connection. And then, you know, and you can kind of plug into that if you hang out with them,
Right.
and or you go out and drink with them or something like that, you know, so they can create those connections with the Americans.
Mhm.
But I wasn't able to plug into the network similar to that. So
Right.
that was one of the things that made my beginning my career at Cornell challenging, because I just felt like I was on an island. And that's another thing about the Baker program. It teaches you how to function in a different way,
Mhm.
that, let's say if you're a high functioning academic, you are able to do your schoolwork easily. And you think the point, you have to retrain your brain,
Mhm.
because up until this point, you think that the function of schoolwork is to get grades. And that's how always approach academics. You know, I can do schoolwork
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I can get grades.
Right, right.
That's easy, you know, 1 + 1 = 2.
Right, right.
But it's not necessarily that way at Cornell and in business school. It's kind of created for you to be able to solve problems, work in groups to be able to create a result.
Mhm.
So you don't necessarily so the idea that now I'm in school, up until this point, I've been a high functioning academic, and but now I'm getting a curriculum that's very challenging, and I'm trying to do it all by myself.
Mhm.
That's where the rub comes in.
Okay, okay.
So, and I'm not relying on my classmates to create this network to where
Mhm.
we're all working towards creating the results of getting our classwork done or these assignments or these team projects
Mhm.
done.
Okay.
So that's where the challenge lied in.
Okay, okay. No, I totally get it. And you met someone last time we touched base. You met someone at Cornell, a young lady who kind of helped you out in navigating Cornell because you know you were one of the few out of all the other things you mentioned, age, just marital status, or however you would say that you're married, and then religion. You're also black, right? So there's only a few of you in that program. I think you said there was one other African American and another Brit slash Nigerian.
Mhm.
So tell me about that community itself and this young lady who helped you navigate that.
Yeah, so when I came in my cohort of 26, it was only 3 of us that were black. 2 of us were Black American, which was me and my homegirl, Lyra Covington. She's a graduate of Duke.
What's
She
her
went
name again?
Lyra Covington.
Shout out,
Shout out to Lyra.
shout out to Lyra.
So she went to Duke undergrad. She's from Charlotte, so we had the kind of that North Carolina connection. And then my man Henry Acarelli, who's Nigerian, but he also spent a lot of time in prep school in
Oh yeah,
in Britain.
that's the path. That's the
You,
path.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so like we were in the program together.
What was his name again?
Henry Acarelli.
Henry Echo.
Yeah,
Shout
yeah.
out,
Shout out to Henry.
shout
That's
out
my
for
man.
Henry.
So kind of being in that first semester of a Baker program, like I said, you're in this environment that's predominantly white, and even if it's not predominantly white, it's predominantly not black.
Right, right, for sure, for sure.
So you got your significant amounts of whites, but then also other people who are from international backgrounds.
Okay, so your first semester was a little rough. That happens, and I'm glad you actually talked about that because we all get giddy. I know I was giddy when I was going to NYU, telling everybody's congratulating me and stuff like that. But one thing we don't see or we don't think about sometimes, I at least talk for myself, and you actually shared your experience, is that it's another transition, and transitions aren't always easy unless you're going in reverse, and sometimes that's a little embarrassing. So going forward, especially in the educational spotlight or realm, you're going through. You're ramping up in a different skill set, even though you've done it before, especially if you spent a lot of time out of the game, whatever that may be, this time at school, it can be challenging for some. Challenging for me. You obviously shared your story. It's challenging for you. So then tell me the follow up to that. What happened in your second semester or going into your second year?
So like after I had those initial conversations with Henry and Lyra, you know, and we said, okay, look, we're gonna be more intentional about connecting with one another, being in this environment, because one thing as a person of color to be vulnerable and to say that this particular curriculum or this particular environment, which is doesn't have people like me, to say that that's challenging,
Mm,
it's almost like you're admitting that you don't you don't belong there. So that's scary
scary.
because you have that in your mind, like, okay, am I here just because I'm here just because I'm black because they needed a black person on here and I'm probably just the most qualified black person,
Right.
and so to admit that or to think that, you have to be vulnerable. But once I had those conversations with kind of Henry and Lyra, they kind of made me more comfortable, and I was more comfortable in my relationship with them to say, okay, this is gonna be my little crew.
Right.
And so one thing that we did was going in that second semester, it was like, hey, let's do a case competition,
Okay.
and the Kellogg case competition at Northwestern came up, and then we
Okay.
had another sister who was in our class, in our refi class, named Kristen.
Hmm.
You know, me, her, and Lyra, we worked in a group project together.
Okay.
So me, Lyra, and Henry, we said we was gonna do the case competition at Kellogg. It was like,
Hmm.
yo, let's bring Kristen in too.
Hmm.
And we had another one of our classmates, Tyler Phelps and Jim and Young, and we all did the case competition at Kellogg, which was like a phenomenal experience in terms of like working with those guys, working in a team environment, and
Hmm.
I think we got robbed, but
We all flew out to Chicago
yeah,
and
yeah,
presented
yeah,
to the
yeah,
Kellogg folks. Okay.
yeah. No shout out to Kellogg, but because the winning team, it was they kind of had their thumbs on the scale, man, because the winning team was in a class with one of the professors the whole semester,
Okay.
and
Okay.
kind of helped
Okay.
them. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I ain't gonna dwell on that. I'm still a little tight about
I
that.
see. I see.
Yeah, but but we presented, man. We had a nice presentation. We had a nice slide deck, and it came up with like a development thesis. And that experience was like really pivotal in terms of developing those relationships, me becoming more comfortable at Cornell, me developing this network with them. And so, kind of after that,
Hmm.
one thing that I wanted to do was say, okay, because we had these challenges, these individual challenges
Hmm.
in our first semester, like but we had to go through this ramp up period, or this period of like massive adjustment
Hmm.
to flourish. Like it shouldn't be like that.
Mm.
And just
Yeah.
just kind of a note that this was my cohort coming in 2017, and the cohort prior to me, there were no black students.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like we didn't have like any OGs to be like, hey, this is the game,
Right.
this is what you need to do. We
Right.
had another student from the class before us who had already graduated, Robert Lathan, shout out to him.
Shout out to Robert.
He graduated in 2017, but he was already gone when we got there. But he's kind of kept a relationship. He kind of put us up onto some game in the interim much as he can, but without being in the program.
Right. 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 Right.
But I was like, hey, I don't want any other students coming in to have to go through this massive adjustment to
Yeah.
kind of like where you're doubting yourself. You don't feel like
Right.
you connect here.
Right.
So I said, why don't we formalize this relationship and create some type of graduate organization
Mm.
that can kind of foster relationships of people who come into the Baker program and Cornell as a whole, so we can create this little network of people who are interested in careers in the built environment, not just the Baker program, but people who are in the Masters in Hospitality Management, people in Masters of City and Regional Planning. You create this little network. So anybody who's coming to Cornell, it's immediate plug and play where you don't hit campus yourself, and then you're left to figure it
Hmm.
out all on your own.
Right.
It's like that's not passing along institutional knowledge.
Right.
It's like you're creating the wheel every time somebody comes in.
Right. We
So I
should have
said,
happened.
hey guys, why don't we formalize this and create like a little club? So that was the kind of the impetus behind the Philip Payton Society for Minorities in Real Estate. So that's
Okay.
kind of how we started that.
All right, Ali. So we're back.
Yeah, man.
Take three.
Yeah, man.
Oh man, thanks a lot for your patience,
No
man.
problem.
So, all right. So where did we leave off last time? Last time, well, not even last time, but last time we had a conversation. You said that you made a transition. So let's update the folks on the transition you recently made.
Yeah, so last time we talked, I was kind of in a bit of a transition period. And so most recently, I accepted a new position. So now I'm the director of project delivery at Ohio State University.
Okay. Okay. The Ohio State University.
The Ohio State University. Yep,
Now, what made you move from Charlotte? Because you're a North Carolina boy through and through.
absolutely.
Hail from Durham,
Yep,
Little City.
yep.
What high school?
Hillside.
Hillside representing.
Yep.
And shout out your alumni college affiliation.
A&T, North Carolina A&T,
UNT. Okay.
and Cornell Graduate School.
All right. So you're East Coast boy, North
Yeah.
Carolina boy through and through. What brought you to the Midwest in Ohio?
Yeah, so for me,
Mhm.
my love for the built environment kind of stems from the idea of city building and looking at cities and the built environment as this big ecosystem of interconnected buildings and whatever's in between buildings. So having the opportunity to go to Ohio State University, which is the 5th largest university in the United States with
Okay.
over 65,000 students and over 50,000 faculty and staff. And, you know, it was kind of like working in a big city. So my passion for city building really extends from the ideas of cities as this large ecosystem
Okay.
that kind of fosters human development. So being that Ohio State is the 5th largest university in the country with over 65,000 students, add on top of that 55,000 employees, you got over 100,000 people
Yeah.
on a campus in a small area that's equivalent to about 3 square miles. So it's almost like working in a small city.
Okay.
So having that opportunity of working in such a densely populated area for a company or an organization that has over 43 million square feet of assets across 14,000 acres of land, if you add in their regional campuses, that really appealed to my sense of placemaking.
Okay. No, that's awesome. And then you moved your whole family. You got a wife, you got kids. How did they take the move?
They liked it. They enjoy it. You know, Columbus is a real family-friendly city. They're enjoying it so far. So right now, everybody's getting dug in. We've been there a couple of months, and everybody's loving it so far.
All right, then. All right. And then let me know how you even got the job. Like, because one thing we all know in this environment, in this market, is really hard to find a job.
Yeah.
So what was your strategies to get the current placement at Ohio State?
I reached out to the director. I saw the position I reached out to the director of the facilities operation and development division and just kind of connect with them on LinkedIn,
Okay.
let them know I was interested in the position. They brought me in for an interview and kind of the rest is history.
You snapped it up like that.
Yep.
All right. And then as far as your future, do you see yourself, I know you don't want to say anything on camera because your employer may be watching this, but this feels like a home for you? You're going to be in Ohio for a little bit?
Yeah, I like
Okay.
it. It's definitely a place where I'm looking to make a long-term movement or make my home kind of long-term for right now.
Okay. Okay. And then anything else you want to update the folks on before we finally finalize this interview? Anything else you got going on? Anything major that happened in your life?
That's pretty much the big things that I'm working on right now.
Okay. One thing I did want to touch on is that we just got done doing the real estate financial modeling. I called it a boot camp, and you see why I called it a boot camp, because it's intensive. And those students, I wanted to make sure there was no lecturing going to be involved. Any type of lecturing or talking was going to be on writing some of the mishaps or mistakes that people made while we were modeling, or me just telling them how to model. So that's why we called it a boot camp. But we just finished it today. That's why we're here again at our alma mater. And this has been in the making for a while. And we always said that we wanted to do something. So, you know, as my partner in crime on this, do you feel like it was a success?
Oh, it's definitely a success. You know, a lot of kids came out, they really expressed their interest in wanting to get that modeling knowledge, and it was a benefit for us. And I know for me to be able to impart that knowledge and skill set to the next generation who may not have those direct resources as it being something that's currently a part of their curriculum, but being able for us to come down and to supplement their curriculum and give them those skills, it was definitely a benefit. Saw a lot of interested kids in the class. They were very engaged. So I think it was very beneficial.
Yeah. And what I liked about it is when we invest our time and money and effort into these things, we don't know the return. Even with my YouTube channel, like, I know it's probably not gonna go viral. I'm gonna get 1 million views. I mean, that's just not the point. The point is to put it out there, see what sticks and see what doesn't stick. But at the end of the day, as long as we know, or especially I speak for myself, I know that this may one day help somebody. That's really the reward. So in planning all this, thanks to Antoine Freeman's assistance through the Blackstone lab space or programming that he's leading there, we were able to get a good sign up, and we had about 11, 12 students come through. And so that's better than I thought the 2 or 3 that might have showed
Yeah,
up. So,
especially for a Saturday morning.
especially for a Saturday morning. It's a beautiful morning. And we had students from business, humanities, all different majors take part in the Excel modeling. So I'm glad that that happened. We'll debrief with Antoine to see what he says, and we'll pretty much go from there. But I'm looking forward to the future on this. How about yourself?
Absolutely. It's right now we're still getting ready for the 6th iteration of the Philip Payton Society real estate case competition to kick off in the coming months and run through the next spring semester.
Yeah.
So it's definitely that we got that experience, and hopefully some of those kids will have that real estate financial modeling component and skill set that they can add to the case competition.
Yeah, and I think I'll say this. I'll add some more sauce to this conversation, just for the fans, the viewers to know. We had planned this when we first met. We had planned to do something on A&T's campus. Obviously, that was during the pandemic, so we couldn't do it immediately. But we combined your Philip Payton Society, which you co-founded, my DCRE media team and YouTube channel. We collabed on that, locked that in. Cool. If anybody wants to go check out the other videos, check it out on DCRE TV, on YouTube, as well as on other social medias. So we have those components of the competition on the platform. And then in interviewing, or I was a judge for last year's competition, I noticed that the students had a disconnect when it came to their financial modeling. And I've been strong in financial modeling for a long time now. That's one of my strengths. So I wanted to put in more effort. And I was really impressed that A&T had competed in the competition. How many years in a row?
5 years in a row. They've had a presence in placement in the top 3 in every 5 years that we've had the case competition.
Right. So that gives the viewers another insight into why we did this here, outside of us just being, good-natured alumni. I saw a gap in the presentation of the financial analysis, which I'm strong at from my experience, as well as I confirmed with Ali that A&T has been participating in the real estate case competition every single year. Has been available. And not only did they participate, but they made the top 3 every single year in the competition. The only one is A&T, not any other HBCU. And we're talking about all the top HBCUs out there. So I'm glad that.
And they've won it twice, just to let you know.
And they won it twice.
Yeah.
5 years, every year, top 3, won twice.
Yeah.
That's all I need to hear.
Yeah.
So there's an appetite here at A&T, and so that's why I felt the effort to build the model over the summer, which took a long time. Every detail, you saw how detailed and formatted I had that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As well as get in touch with Antoine and present it to him in August, to hold virtual classes in September, and then a in-person presentation or finalization of the programming in November. So this has been a long journey, as well as other projects we've worked on before. But the cool thing about it is I feel like we started something great, trying to connect the dots. And I look forward to doing this next year, as well as I want to strengthen A&T's performance at these next competitions that they do. And we come out and we win every single one going forward. Right. So that's the game. That would be my dream come true. And giving them this type of training, I believe that they will take this experience after we do this year after year after year, and next thing you know, they hit the ground and they're able to model this up. They already have that exposure. As I bring to them more scenarios, more situations, more deals that I'm working on that they can work on. So once they get that case, it's nothing. At the end of the day, the overall arching end game is that A&T becomes the top tier or premier HBCU for talent recruitment, because they can hit the ground running.
Absolutely.
How did that start? That started from the Philip Payton Society, which you co-founded, and others helped to put the showcase on. And then my interaction with the nitty-gritty financial modeling expertise, and then the combination of the two, as well as the experience from the students, the beautiful collab. Next thing you know, we got Hines, Trammell, every REIT, and all the investment firms or construction firms, development firms in the city and in the country coming to A&T to get those students for their experience, because they can hit the ground running. So sorry for that long rant, but I just wanted to also put that out there of why we do what we do and what we expect to happen in the future if we keep on doing what we love doing. So that's all I got.
Wow. Beautiful.